Namaskar and thanks for joining us on the Economic Brief, our weekly program on some key news related to the economy, both in India and across the world. On the program, India and UK fast-track the trade deal amid large business delegations. The US budget bill remains stalled and federal shutdown enters the second week. Politics trumps economics. WTO warns of a tougher 2026 despite AI boom and tariff rush lifting global trade. And Guinea's $20 billion Simandou mine, it nears its launch, sparking both hope and concern. Our top story, India and the UK are accelerating their landmark trade deal with Prime Minister Modi and Prime Minister Starmer leading the charge. This was signed in July of 2025 and the agreement promises to double trade by 2030. Starmer's visit to India is backed by the UK's largest ever business delegation and it sparked sectoral talks, early MoUs and fresh momentum toward ratification. Let's look at this report.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi has played a pivotal role in advancing the India-UK Free Trade Agreement, CETA, signed in July 2025 and currently awaiting ratification, a process that may take up to a year. He has consistently championed the deal, highlighting its vast potential to deepen business ties and drive economic growth.
हमारी साझेदारी ट्रस्टवर्दी है, टैलेंट और टेक्नोलॉजी ड्रिवन है और आज जब मैं और प्रधानमंत्री स्टारमर मंच पर एक साथ खड़े हैं तो ये हमारा स्पष्ट कमिटमेंट है कि हम एक साथ मिलकर दोनों देशों के लोगों के लिए एक उज्जवल भविष्य का निर्माण करेंगे.
UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer's first visit to India underscored a strong commitment to unlocking the potential of the India-UK Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, with his sizable business delegation signaling urgency and ambition.
And that's why I brought a record 126 British businesses with me to India this week. We had to get a bigger plane to travel over here than the one we planned, but that delegation is some of our biggest, most iconic businesses and smaller and medium-sized businesses, but also leaders from education.
The UK is hoping to fast-track parliamentary approval to ratify the India-UK FTA. A joint economic and trade committee, JETCO, is overseeing its rollout on both sides. CEOs from both nations engaged in sectoral dialogues, spanning manufacturing, clean energy, fintech, and consumer goods. Early momentum was evident with an MoU between the British Film Institute and India's NFDC for co-productions, and UK firms like Rolls-Royce signaling plans to expand in India.
It is the biggest welcome that I've ever received, ever seen, and the whole delegation is just so touched by it. And this is what it's all about, the seriousness of the UK-India relationship, where the UK has come here with the biggest business delegation in a long time saying we need business.
Once ratified, the UK will grant duty-free access on 99.1% of its tariff lines, covering all trade value, while India will cut or eliminate duties on 90% of its lines, covering 92% of UK imports. The agreement aims to double bilateral trade to $120 billion by 2030, up from $56.9 billion in 2024-25.
Now, relevance of Indian companies have now been felt by every single country. UK trade FTA agreement has facilitated that. And now, the global companies and UK headquartered companies are seeing how important it is to tie up with Indian companies.
CEOs from both nations have aligned with the Vision 2035 roadmap to deepen collaboration across trade, defense, climate, education, and technology. The Economic Brief, DD India.
And Professor Rakesh Mohan Joshi, expert on international trade and management, Vice Chancellor of the Indian Institute of Foreign Trade, is joining us. Thank you very much, Professor Joshi. Now, how do you assess the intent of the business communities on both sides? Sir, I can't hear you. Could you, maybe you're on mute. Yeah.
Thank you so much. As you are listening, that for the last 2 days or so, that the both countries are in a very very positive frame, and the UK Prime Minister Starmer has already talked about that it is the largest ever delegation which came to India, and then he has also described that even he had to do some logistics modification because of a lot of interest. And if you see the today's newspapers in UK, they are very very optimistic about this. Now both are the countries are among the world's largest economies. Both countries, then India is world's largest democracy, and the Stemmer has already talked about that India is not only a large economy but also the fastest growing major economy in the world. And his visit today, along with the jumbo delegation which came, which include the CEOs of the top companies. The UK government and its industry is very, very optimistic about India, as well as India is optimistic about it. And what I feel is it is going to be a very, very synergistic and a symbiotic relationship. As I think you already, people know that 99% of the Indian exports to UK have been, made duty free, which is going to provide a tremendous opportunity for our products, especially the products in which we are interested in the labor-intensive sector, the products in the agriculture, the product in the textile, handloom, handicraft, and the shrimp and the textile industry. So it's going to be a very very win-win deal, and because in the present turbulence which I think the whole world is seeing in the global economy, especially due to the reciprocal tariff and the ever-changing policies with the United States. This deal is a very, very landmark deal, and it is what we say the gold standard of the trade deals that India has ever signed. It has been a most comprehensive deal that the India has ever signed, because it is not only the trade, but it goes across the areas, and therefore I'm very, very optimistic
Professor
about...
Joshi, Professor Joshi, how aligned are the economies of both the countries? They have a vision also for 2035. So how aligned are the priorities and basically the economies currently?
No, you are right, because the kind of it's going to be very very synergistic, because India, what we require is, as Stemmer was talking today itself, that we require research, we require innovation for our production, and what he has talked is 6 of the UK universities already establishing campus in India, and what he said is I think the most top universities in UK will also establish campus. So it's research also. The Indians contribute a lot of research, but we require the right technology, the right environment, and it's going to be a two-way process. Indian universities are also likely to be have some sort of operations in UK. So it's going to be a game changer. It's going to be a game changer. And for both economies, if you see both economies, India itself is a vast market. A country with 1.46 billion people, India is a vast market for UK as well. And more importantly is the consumers in India would also have access to the better quality of the goods, and India and UK are a bit different market in terms of the quality of product being sold, in terms of the marketing channel or the logistics channels. So I am sure that both countries will learn, and it will add to the growth of the export, to the growth of investment, and to the growth of GDP as a whole in both the countries.
Stay with us, Professor Rakesh Mohan Joshi. Stay with us for our next story as well. I'll come back to you for your analysis of that story. Now, as of October 9, 2025, the US government shutdown, it entered its second week with no resolution in sight, and negotiations remain stalled. The Senate has failed 6 times to pass funding bills to end the shutdown, with neither the Republicans nor the Democratic proposals actually reaching the required 60 votes that are needed. Let's look at this report.
The October 2025 US shutdown is unusually severe. Democrats want to reverse Medicaid cuts and restore healthcare subsidies, while Republicans demand a clean funding bill. Trump's earlier big beautiful bill boosted defense and tax breaks by slashing federal programs, which Democrats now aim to undo.
We are very serious about the issue of improving the quality of life of the American people, about canceling the cuts, lowering the costs, and saving health care. Very serious about it. And we've made that clear from the beginning.
About 900,000 federal workers are furloughed, 700,000 unpaid, the largest disruption since 2018-19. Defense and Homeland Security are funded. Agencies like CDC, NIH, and WIC face major cuts. A White House memo urges permanent layoffs, breaking precedent. The shutdown is being used to shrink the federal workforce in line with broader efficiency goals.
We are going to have to lay some people off if the shutdown continues. We don't like that. We don't necessarily want to do it, but we're going to do what we have to keep the American people's essential services continuing to run.
And then, of course, the Office of Management and Budget is continuing to work with agencies on who, unfortunately, is going to have to be laid off if this shutdown continues.
This is the first shutdown since 2018-19, driven by deep ideological divides. Unlike past standoffs, there's no clear path forward. Key economic data delays are affecting market sentiment. Republicans demand the budget be passed before talks, while Democrats want healthcare concessions before accepting it. Speaker Mike Johnson said there's nothing to negotiate.
People are starting to recognize this is not a Republican shutdown. It is a Schumer Democrat shutdown. Again, why? Because they needed political cover. It's shameless, it is sad, real people are hurting, and it needs to end.
The differences center on core issues: healthcare, jobs, climate, not just budget numbers. With multiple entrenched disputes, this shutdown is harder to end. President Trump is using a carrot and stick approach, warning of federal cuts and project cancellations if the shutdown drags on, while dangling the possibility of rebate checks from tariff revenues to soften the blow. The Economic Brief, DD India.
Well, Professor Rakesh Mohan Joshi continues to be with us. Professor Joshi, so is this shutdown a way of actually downsizing the U.S. Department, something that, DOGE had suggested when it was active under Elon Musk?
I think, it's a worrisome state of affair for the United States. And as you are aware that, the kind of the political, the crisis which has evolved is, in the first quarter of 2025, the US GDP growth has slowed down to 1.6% annualized. Unemployment is already 4-year high, which is 4.3%, and grocery inflation is probably the highest in the last 3 years due to the tariffs. And under this situation, if you see that the shutdown puts a threat of the permanent layoff to over 300,000 federal jobs rather than the temporary furlongs which have been common in US. And if you see that it is going to have the loss, it is going to be a week's time, it is only $15 billion US, but if in more than 3 weeks, then it could have a loss of $45 billion per month, or the US can go into the recession. So risk is really great. Customer spending are already down by 1 to 2%, 5% drop in the holidays, and market volatility is already there. US already is facing the political volatility, and most countries, and please understand that it is not the policies, but it is the instability in the economy, instability in the policy making, and instability in the tax environment, which is creating a trouble. But now all this economic trouble is also translating into a big political stiff and standoff in the United States of America. And I'm sure sure it is going to have, the impact on the economy. But I think it is going to be wait and watch that how long this, shutdown remains. And especially, the stiff on the tiff on political reasons is, I think, very, very worrisome.
True.
Not only for United States, but those who are supplying in America, investors, foreign investors, and even American firms investing abroad. At the same time, it is extremely worrisome for the people of United States, because because of the layoffs which the America is facing, and 700, almost 700, 800,000 employers.
But Professor Joshi, I mean, if I can come in here, I mean, you did say that it's already affecting the U.S. economy.
Absolutely.
But the point is that the U.S. economy, I mean, at least they believe in free market and more private sector driven, policies, rather than they don't really want too much government. So in this case, I mean, is this a sign that, the private sector can come to the party in a sense?
No, that's very right. That's very right. So I think it because US believes in private sector, so it will further downsize the impact of the the US governance, and the private sector will become more and more dominant in the economy. That is right. But even the people in the US are skeptical, and because there are certain things which are already in the US, there are things like defense and many other activities, taxation and all that, which cannot be outsourced to the private. Research, especially if you look into the research fundings, have reduced. So I think things are to be worrisome, and there is a big political stiff wherein 2 days before the president has already issued very tough warning to the governor of some of the states. So so economic situation is going to be very, very turbulent. So I think the situation is wait and watch. And in this, if you look into India, we have provided a very stable government. India has provided a very stable economic policy and a very stable environment for the investors to work, for the domestic companies to work. And I think in our time to come, you are seeing that the UK Prime Minister is visiting, and everybody, if you see those the interactions with those the business people and the corporates from UK, they are very, very optimistic in India. True. And it will improve the
stable policy environment is what India has, is what you're saying. We leave it there. Thank you very much, Professor Rakesh Mohan Joshi. Thank you for joining us and helping us understand these two stories in greater detail. Moving on then to our next story, global trade is riding high this year, thanks to a surge in AI exports and a rush to beat the US tariffs by several countries. But the World Trade Organization has been warning that the good times are not going to last. 2026 will shape up to be a year that's going to be tougher for commerce worldwide. Diptanshu Kashyap reports.
Global trade is on a roller coaster this year. A surge in AI-related exports and a mad dash to beat US tariff deadlines have pushed merchandise trade higher, at least for now. The World Trade Organization says technology goods and front-loaded imports into the United States have fueled this temporary boost. But experts warn this relief may be short-lived. The growth is uneven across regions, revealing both the resilience and the fragility of the global trading system.
Just because we see resilience in the system doesn't mean that we're home free, because there's so much uncertainty. And that's why we've also been very upfront with you that it's very difficult to forecast because we have these ups and downs with regard to trade policy uncertainty. So I am concerned.
The World Trade Organization says global trade has outperformed expectations in the first half of 2025. A strong appetite for machinery, motor vehicles, lumber, and of course AI-linked products has powered growth. AI goods from semiconductors to servers and telecom equipment are leading the charge, accounting for 42% of trade expansion, even though they make up only 15% of global trade. Clearly, technology is not just shaping our future, it's reshaping global commerce today. But the picture darkens in 2026. The WTO now predicts just 0.5% growth, warning that higher tariffs, postponed trade measures, and lingering uncertainty could weigh heavily on markets. Although every region is bracing for weaker import performance, though Asia and Africa remain the bright spots for exports. So what does it all mean? Global trade has held strong this year, but the storm clouds are gathering. Europe and North America may struggle, while Asia and Africa push ahead. Diptanshu Kashyap's report for the Economic Brief, DD India.
Guinea is on the brink of starting one of Africa's largest mining projects at the Simandou Mountains. This $20 billion venture, it promises to transform Guinea's economy, but it also raises big questions for communities as well as the environment. We explore how Simandou could change Guinea's future. We leave you with Tarun Badgaya's report. Take a look. Thanks very much for watching the Economic Brief. Namaskar.
The Simandou Mountains in the southeast Guinea hold some of the world's richest iron ore deposits. After decades of delays, Guinea is finally preparing to export iron ore, marking a historic moment for the country. The project includes building over 650 kilometers of railway and a huge port, a monumental task costing billions of dollars. Once fully operational, Simandou is expected to produce up to 60 million tons of iron ore annually, making Guinea one of the world's top exporters.
It's an exceptional mine, with production that will have a major impact on the world iron ore market and an extremely high grade in terms of quality. It will generate a lot of resources for the Guinean state, and then with the railway, a whole economic ecosystem is going to be totally changed.
While Simandou offers great promise, it is changing life for local communities. Villages such as Twiguide, once reliant on fishing, report drastic falls in catches since construction began. Fishermen now travel farther into unsafe waters, and many have lost their only source of income. Environmental groups report soil and water pollution, while mining companies say they are working to limit harm, relocating operations and restoring mined land. Guinea's government calls Simandou a gateway to new economy under its Simandou 2040 vision. They believe the railway and port could open remote areas for trade and agriculture, but critics say benefits to ordinary citizens are unclear, with key agreements kept secret. Guinea is rich in resources, yet many remain in poverty, and some fear the project will bring more harm than good.
I think the main challenges of the project, certainly if we go back in time, we talk about the phase of getting the agreements in place, bringing all four industrial partners together with the government of Guinea to complete this project was a monumental task.
From untouched forest to one of the largest mining projects in Africa, Simandou is Guinea's bold economic bet. If managed well, it could transform the country's future. But balancing profits with people's needs and environmental protection will be the real challenge. For Guinea, Simandou will be a test of whether growth can be shared fairly. Tarun Badgaya's report for the Economic Brief, DD India.